Welcome to Second Take, the show that takes a look at the issues behind the news. Domestic new vehicle sales are growing strongly, while Chery South Africa has taken ownership of Nissan's former Roslyn assembly plant. Irma joins me to discuss the latest developments in South Africa's automotive industry. Hi, Irma.
Morning, Chanel. Nice to talk to you.
South Africa's new vehicle sales are growing strongly. What is driving this growth, and what is the outlook for sales for this year?
I think by now we may have forgotten that the year actually started off, pretty well. We had a lovely economy at the beginning of the year compared with what we've got now. Interest rates were going down, inflation was coming down, and everything. It seemed like we were going to have a good year. So people were optimistic. Consumers were spending money, and they were buying new vehicles. And then, of course, the whole Iran-US conflict happened, and inflation went through the roof. Fueled by high fuel prices and that type of thing. But it still seems that hasn't stopped consumers from trying to buy new vehicles. Maybe they're not convinced it's gonna be a long conflict. Things have stirred up again this past week, as we all know now. So just as we were lifting our head and thinking maybe we're going to have a better economy for the rest of the year, but all in all, consumers are fairly positive. They're buying new cars. And of course, there are a lot of new brands available in South Africa. As with the rest of the world, the Chinese brands are launching all over the world. And they've got surplus in their market, and they're targeting export markets. So consumers have a lot of choice, a lot of technology in these new vehicles. Their prices are lower than the traditional brands. So there's some very competitive vehicles out there for consumers, and they're turning to these vehicles and they're buying them. So unfortunately, the detriment of our traditional manufacturers in South Africa as well. So there's a lot of attractive vehicles on the market, and people are buying them. And we expect to see a market of 600,000 units a year. It's all up in the air, of course. The second half of the year can produce something interesting. If the conflict in the Middle East escalates, who knows what's going to happen. But at the moment, it looks like we're on track for a 600,000 unit a year market, which would be really actually a good recovery for the South African automotive market.
As you mentioned, Chinese vehicle brands are gaining popularity in the South African market. Why is that?
Well, I think it's a little bit to do with the price point. So you can get more for less. It's to do with the technology in the vehicle. So there's a lot of technology in these new vehicles coming in compared with your traditional brands. And people seem to be really attracted and grabbing onto that. We also now have, for the first time ever, a Chinese vehicle as the car of the year, the T2 Jetour. And we have a lot of new brands coming into South Africa. Also from India, for example, Tata has relaunched. So you've got all of these vehicles coming in, and people are just really interested in what they're offering. They're really interested in the looks. And I think traditional manufacturers have been a little bit caught on the back foot. I don't think they quite anticipated the speed with which China would enter the global automotive market. And they have been moving rapidly, and they've been bringing in very good product. Of course, we don't know anything about reliability yet. That you can see if somebody replaces a Chinese vehicle with another Chinese vehicle, or that brand that comes at 100,000 Ks, 150,000 Ks, then we can start looking at that. But for now, people are really grabbing onto these vehicles. They find them exciting. They find them cheaper than the traditional alternatives, and that is really fueling this a lot of our increase in sales that we're also seeing in the local automotive market.
And then lastly, Chery South Africa has taken ownership of Nissan's former assembly plant. What is the significance of this for South Africa?
Well, it's really a good thing. I think we're way beyond the point where we're thinking there's going to be some Chinese manufacturers and they're going to come and go. They are a part of the automotive landscape globally now, everywhere in the world. That is the truth for America. That is the truth for even if they don't want to know it. That's true for Europe, for Australia, Asia. It doesn't matter where you go. Chinese brands are a fixture on our automotive landscape for now. So if that is the truth, then we also want some Chinese manufacturers to come to South Africa and produce their vehicles here. So that is a very good thing. We do want Great Wall Motors to come in. We do want Chery to come in and produce here. So that is excellent if you want a manufacturing economy. There is a few people are a little bit, commentators on the industry are a little bit nervous that they're not going to do true local content. So we're very off what's called semi-knockdown construction. So that is basically a few big parts, 4 or 5 big parts of a vehicle being put together and then calling that local assembly. So what they really want Chery to do is to do as many parts local as well, and then to do true knockdown assembly in South Africa and put all these parts together. That means you also establish local manufacturers and local component manufacturers in South Africa. And it seems like this will definitely be the case. Chery says they're aiming for a 40% local content. So that means that will be higher than what is the local content we have among traditional manufacturers in South Africa at the moment as an average. So if that is true, that will be true local production. That will be brilliant for local manufacturing, for job creation, for component manufacturers. But I do think that will mean that we will have to see the entry of the Chinese tier one parts component manufacturer, at least one, if not two, into South Africa very soon, if Chery wants to make this 40% local content come true. They're also aiming for 50,000 units a year, which is brilliant. That is where you start to qualify for true benefits under the APDP government support program for the automotive sector. So we really hope as a manufacturing sector, I think as a manufacturing sector, they really do hope that Chery pulls this off and they manage that 50,000 units with that 40% local content. That will be very good for the South African industrial landscape.
Thank you for chatting to us.
Thank you very much.
That's the Second Take show for this week. Thank you for watching and join us again next time for more news analysis.